Okay, guys, welcome to the Special Heroes Spring Banner Unit and Skill Impressions for March 2019. It is finally time that we gaze over these brand new units, what they mean to the game of Fire Emblem Heroes, and of course, if you're new to this series, as I do with every single banner, I'm going to look at them as objectively as possible. There is not much bias, and of course, what do their implications mean on top-level gameplay for Fire Emblem Heroes, because that is exactly what my content is based on. So we're going to look at all four of these guys. Loki will be covered tomorrow during the unit analysis and comparisons video, so be sure to check that out as well. I am personally probably most stoked about that one for many reasons that I'll just talk about tomorrow, and it totally depends what she's going to have. But yeah, let's go through these ones that we have here in front of us. I'll look at the skills, and I'll look at the actual kind of role these units will play within like top level AR and maybe even top level arena, if you even want to consider maybe some PvE content like Abyssals, but generally I can avoid that because I feel like every unit can perform well with enough investment in those modes. Definitely AR and arena will be our focus for the video. So let's jump into it, shall we? Springtime is on its way. I love this presentation they do. It always looks really good.
These ears never stay on straight, do they?
Okay, so for those of you that don't know, and this is going to be from my preferences, not the objective analysis of the unit itself, Palla is actually my favorite White Wing sister. However, I do use Est on my air defense team. I like Palla, I like Est. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of Catria, but I like them all, so don't attack me yet for those of you that love Catria. But eldest sister resonates really well because I am the eldest brother in my family, and that's really what it is. Are you the eldest in your family? Maybe, or the youngest? Maybe that can kind of place whether you prefer one sister over another. I don't know. Either way, let's talk about Palla herself. So she is a red dagger flying unit. Again, this is brand new as a role. We didn't have this before. We have Hanoka, Bath Hanoka, which was green, and that was pretty much as close as it got. With, I believe, Flora on the floor and Yolger also on the floor. So we do have like a trifecta of colors with daggers now, which is interesting. I've never been a huge fan of colored daggers. I use a lot of colorless daggers. I do use HS Chem, and I do use Air, of course, and like fully invested as well. So her being a red dagger flyer unit is interesting, but unfortunately it's not ideal. I believe like a flying dagger that's colorless is going to be a bit better with maybe some variety in the stat spreads. Yeah, let's see. Beyond that, though, it really does depend what her stat spread ends up being. At least she's unique in being the unit type that she is. Like, there's no other red flying daggers. So that means that she's going to be able to perform roles that no one else would if you wanted a red flying physical damage that can also debuff support. Okay, so full kit. Swift Sparrow on every range unit possible. That is pretty much to be expected and staple at this point. I am not surprised to see this now. There's probably like 14 or 15 units there. We got Draconic Aura and Hone Flyers. That's kind of nice. That's already setting her up for kind of support role. I'm going to talk about Pegasus Carrot Plus first. So Pegasus Carrot Plus is, I don't really like that skill too much, to be honest, like just without even reading its text. To kind of summarize what it does, it's got the effect of damage against armors. It's not the first one to have it though. The Hoshiden dagger that comes from Ryoma also has this, but it takes off the Vantage effect. This one has like a sturdy impact effect by denying the follow-ups, but that is conditional, and that's the part I don't like. It's conditional as long as you have the weapon triangle advantage, and it neutralizes status effects. So what this means is like you pretty much only get your good effects from this weapon when, not counting the effective, if you were beating into a matchup which you already have the advantage of. So it's like snowballing the matchup that you already should be winning even more in your favor. So I'm not really a big fan of this dagger, and of course you can give it to, let's say, the green ones or the blue, whatever future color daggers we get, and pretty much just snowball those matchups even harder, which is why I don't like that. The conditional effect really lets this dagger become from like amazing to mediocre at best. The fact that it's effective is good though, I gotta admit. You could still throw it on like a colorless dagger unit, but at that point it's pretty much just colorless effective damage. That's pretty much what it is, and you're never really going to get that whole follow-up effect, so that kind of sucks. Yeah, there's nothing you can do there in terms of utilizing the effect on colorless. So again, I was talking about colorless being preferred, but I guess this is one way to make color daggers slightly more appealing. I feel like if maybe it was against weapon triangle disadvantage, it might be really cool to make your otherwise tough matchup into a better one. Maybe? I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this dagger. I don't see its potential too well. You can't really use it on like pretty much the whole colorless dagger pool, and you're limited to a very small portion of 5-star exclusives that can use it instead. So anyways, let's look at the disarm trap. So I'm sure a lot of people are discussing this one, but I'm going to tell you straight up that it is not as good as it looks for a lot of reasons. So disarm trap should be used on a support unit if you decide to use it in a way that you think that you should use it. And the reason I say this is you don't use disarm trap on like a tank if you'd wanted to, because a tank will want something like dull ranged. An AR Omega tank won't like dull range, like Vantage, will want quick riposte or even like null C or something. So you don't use it on that. So if you use it on supports to turn off the traps, then that's one way to look at it. But the thing is, and a lot of people don't realize this, is you don't need this skill to test traps or even disarm them, because a good way to test traps is just smiting a unit into the trap. Like literally, most traps that might be overexposed can be taken care of by just smiting the unit in. Now, if you can't actually do that, then the other case is the trap is like so buried deep into the enemy team comp that you have to literally engage in. Like you cannot try to go and disarm the trap and pull out. Like with enough dances, it's almost impossible against units that might have 2 or 3 range. It's not going to happen. So the cases where this is useful is units that just go deep. Units that want to nuke something and they don't have to rely on smite, or they don't want to take the damage of something. But the thing is, if they're playing aggressively, then they're probably using CC Vantage, which you can't use Vantage because Disarm Trap would be taking that role, or they're giving up a really good B skill, which might otherwise be something like Mystic Boost, or like I said, dull range or quick riposte. So if you're going to go in ranged with a unit to disarm a trap and nuke something deep, then in that case, you have problems. Now, the one place I do feel like this is a useful skill in, because honestly it wasn't too good in all those other scenarios, is the Gale Force cavalry, or just Gale Force in general units, where they have to engage deep and they cannot be testing traps as easily because those traps are so far into the enemy team comp. So if you intend to use this with like Elwood or Perry or Oscar, your cavalry groups, Pane, Tiburn and something, those guys don't even necessarily need their B skills. I think the only good ones which you would have used for those units would have been like Wings of Mercy to have follow-ups between them, but that's still kind of inconsistent because it's totally dependent on the enemy team comp damaging your unit, getting them into low range, or even setting up like an enemy lightning trap so you can set up those Wings of Mercy plays. So that's where I think the disarm trap is the most consistent. Those Gale Force cavalry 3 movement units that can go in, test a trap without fear, and get their Gale Forces off and begin their snowball that way. That's pretty much the best case scenario for disarm trap, and I think that's okay because Gale Force plays in AR offense are the most difficult to complete. They require a lot of thought process and a lot of calculations on top of that. So I think that's the one place you'd use it. Is the skill worth pulling for though? No, it's not, because Gale Force already is inconsistent, and this just makes it a little bit less consistent, but not enough for it to matter. You need to combine like curtains, infantry pulses, flashing blades on the A slot, heavy blades in the A slot, quick impulses, Valoria maybe, and now a disarm trap. Like there's so many things and resources in place to try to make Gale Force offense teams consistent for it to not really be that good. So that's how I think of disarm trap. Not too impressed, honestly.
This rabbit bites.
Crimson Rapid.
Fighting, I'll have to hop away.
I like that. It's so good. This is Setsuna's voice actor, by the way, but she plays this one really well. Okay, so I think it's well played from the acting point of view. I don't mind the art too much either. It is a bunny costume. Like, what do we really expect out of this? Okay, deep breath. But that's a lance, and that's a flyer. Yeah, there is nothing that is going to redeem that combination anymore in 2019, unfortunately, without some crazy preference weapons and some radical stat spreads. But the thing is, every single stat spread in the Blue Lance Flyer slot is pretty much taken at this point. Like, you have slow, double tanky, Florina, effective weapon against armor, white wings like S and Katria, cooldown reduction, super speedy flyers like Shigure, Sumia. List goes on, man. Shanna with a Wodao noontime, Wodao slaying. There's so much competition in the Blue Lance Flyer slot that there is absolutely nothing that Marisa could possibly have in a stat spread that would make her stand out from these other units in terms of performance. And the fact that she's seasonal locked and 5-star exclusive, meaning you have to spend thousands of orbs versus a 3 and 4-star unit that you could easily merge up. Yeah. Okay, and honestly, when it comes to even the fodder, it's not even that amazing. It's just whatever. So Flyer Guidance has been here before. That's been on Hanoka from way back in 2018. Speed Defense Link, it's new, but that doesn't mean it's good. Speed Defense Link is interesting. I guess you could use that on maybe like Titania, who would give Res Tactic, I guess. And then have like Attack Tactic as your C skill, and that would be okay with a free seal slot. That's like the one situation I feel like you could use that link skill decently, but other than that, it's just no. It's not a thing. Flash and Carrot is a brand new kind of weapon. That's okay. So Flash and Carrot, similar to what Lloyd, the GHP unit, uses with his Regal Blade. It pretty much checks the health of the enemy unit. If it's full, you get a bunch of stats. So that's pretty good. It's pretty much like a Fury effect there. I guess Fury 2. And it's conditional based on the enemy HP, but I don't feel it's that good because there's so many other lances that compete with this in a much better way. So if you take all the other Blue Lance Flyers that have preference weapons, those all do so much. Like White Wing Lance, for instance, or White Wing Spear is already amazing as it is. And then you have like the Shanna one with the Wodao and slaying effect. There's so many. You have the effective weapon of flare. It's crazy how many things you can do with Blue Lance Fire preference weapons, because they are some of the unit types that have had so much preference weapons given to them. So this carrot's interesting for units that don't have preference weapons. So what's that? Cordelia, Shigure, Sumia, Marisa herself, and I guess Thea. Yeah, it's not looking good. And even those might just want to use a slaying lance or a harmonic lance or something that's just going to output more damage. This is a big wah in terms of potential here in both fodder and unit type.
It is a blessing of the spring season to be here with you.
Oh, yes, it is, Bruno. Oh, yes. So okay. First things first, for those of you that didn't notice. Now, I know it's kind of hidden here by the whole YouTube bar, but artist Penacor is responsible for Summer Xander. Okay. That's enough. That's all I need to say. So, this area here may become very appealing to the eyes. Okay, beyond that, Horse Cavalry healer. Interesting. We have a few now. There are some options in the 3 and 4 star pool, being Clarine, Nana's 4 or 5 star, if you really want to be specific about it, and Priscilla. So there's already 3 options there, and those ones are good, but they don't have the super high attack stat of some of the other horse healers that we have. For instance, like the NY Levitine, we have Brave Veronica as well, and I'm probably missing someone. There's like obviously Bruno now. So yeah, there's already like so many other options when it comes to this. You probably have somebody that's already fulfilling this kind of role, and Veronica herself is already so amazing based on what her staff does. So I don't really feel like Bruno is going to be really taking this kind of slot. Could you imagine though a colored staff? That would be interesting. It's not impossible. If we've had colored daggers and bows, it's not like staffs couldn't be colored at this point. But they would just end up being like colored mages at that point, right? I don't know. Anyways, Bruno's not really in a place where I consider him worth investment, but he could maybe work if he was really, really tanky, I guess. It's like a really high defense. But he'd probably still compete with NY Levitine in that case. Okay. He does bring some new stuff. It's not really the most interesting of skills, though. Martyr, Miracle, Dazzling Staff is okay. I think Dazzling's nice here. Ovoid Staff, the new staff given to us, is cool. It's not as good as the Heron Wings, though, because it needs to hit units adjacent. And it also heals himself, too. And I feel like that's not actually a good thing, because like healing isn't always good. It's decent. It would probably be really good when you consider Arena and Sea Dual Infantry, because you don't get a lot of healing that way, and you pretty much use stuff like Renewal on your bonus unit. But healing isn't always wanted in like AR, for instance. In AR, you don't really want healing if you use Wings of Mercy, if you will use Escape Route. So the staff isn't really that great. You'd probably be wanting to use something else like maybe Gravity or Pain, or even Grand Scratcher for setting up some really nice plays. So I don't feel like the staff is too great outside of Arena, to be honest. And yeah, we do have Attack Defense Push, which is released. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of that either. It does maybe imply that he'll have some good defense to maybe make him stand out from the other cavalry healers. But honestly, Attack Defense Push is not too great, because a lot of units that want to play aggressively are going to want attack speed variants and not attack defense variants. Remember, the defense isn't used well unless you are getting hit. And if you think about units that use attack speed push, for instance, healers, they all don't really get hit in the first place because they're using dazzling. Or if you're going to get hit, you'd rather want something like close counter, which A is taking. The A slot is taken by attack defense push. So it's not really in a slot where it's too great to get much value. So you pretty much would want this on maybe like a tank that already has a distant counter weapon. Think like Fjorm or Legendary Ike or something like that. But again, those units may just want steady breath instead, warding breath, bonus doublers and stuff. So yeah, I don't feel like this is too great. If you play offensively, attack speed push would just be the better option. Not to mention there's literally attack speed solo, which could also outperform this as well. There is synergy between the push skill and the staff for healers, but again, speed is better than defense in most cases.
I'm a rabbit.
Veronica, I am a teacher. Okay. Green flying mage. So green flying mage, there's a few of them now, with Spring Camilla actually being on a spring banner from 2 years ago. So Veronica is maybe just a better version by now. I really doubt it, because Spring Camilla was actually interesting for having high defense. That's not to say Veronica won't have high defense. That's possible. But generally speaking, there have been quite a few that came out after that. We do have Bridal Sanaki, Giga Nino, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody. I'm sure I missed one more. I can't really remember what the other one is, but maybe that's it. But there's a few of them now. There's no like free-to-play option yet. And it's unique enough that if you don't already have that slot covered, that she could probably fulfill a role. It totally depends on the stat spread, though. It's not the most interesting of roles at this part. At this time. She does get the luxury of having a preference weapon, though, so that's interesting. It feels like it's funny because her weapon just feels like really good for a preference weapon. So as long as she's pretty high health, she gets a bunch of stats. And this could work really well if you consider like renewals or even Bruno's staff being near her. So there's a bit of synergy for that. And the fact that you get all those stats does make her a lot bulkier. So, there's a lot of synergy there between healing and bulkiness to make sure she's as healthy as possible. The fact that the egg itself also gives speed is good because then you're maybe avoiding doubles and also not getting hit that hard. It's nice. It's a unique weapon. I'll give it maybe some usage out of that. The part that's really the really nice thing to talk about here, though, is the fact that G-Dual Flying is now available. So let's talk about G-Dual Flying in brief to kind of tell you where you want to use this. Because if you pull her, you likely want to kill her for G-Dual Flying. So G-Dual Flying. First thing that comes to mind for a unit that will really want this would probably be Racin. And Racin will definitely want this, but not because of dance or sing, I guess, but because of Heron Wing giving healing and the fact that Racin is also 3 movement. So healing, as I mentioned, is kind of hard to come by in Arena. So if you feel like you're struggling there for whatever reason, supporting with healing is great. So, and of course, mobility from 3 movement and flying is huge. So G-Dual Flying definitely goes to Racin. You don't even have to use them with a dance. You could switch to a rally if you needed to for points, but the fact that you could use that as an option as a secondary thing is huge. So definitely Racin as both an AR offense, defense, and Arena unit just became like really good being in the 4-star pool. Beyond that, though, we do have a few other options, which I want to mention would be Camilla and Shershi. I'm not going to really bother with anybody else, but I feel like Camilla and Shershi definitely get some attention here. Most notably Shershi, because she has Panic Ploy in her weapon, and she reaches about 58 HP, not including blessings. So that's huge. Like, that is really good. Panic Ploy is a seal I use every single week in Arena. It really helps when everybody's using rallies, so there's force buffs, and you can really lower the enemy stats of the opposing units, and that is a huge advantage. So Shershi is a support unit, preference weapon, really does help. Now, Camilla, on the other hand, is not going to have... It's going to be a slightly different thing. I'm not really going to touch on the fact that she supports flyers and cavalries because those unit types aren't actually that common as bonus units. Like if you're using the Asker Trio, they're all infantry. And sometimes you get a bonus unit that's cavalry or flying, but I don't really get them too often. What's interesting to note about Camilla is she's got a decent res stat, so you could use poise, for instance, and the fact that she's got decent speed as well, so you could use sweep skills with poison strikes as well. On top of that, being flying gives you mobility, so that's kind of why Camilla is good there, but I think Shershi and Racin definitely are the best options there. So yeah, that pretty much covers these.
Fuzzy creature.
The armor is a fuzzy creature because he has a spring bunny hat. Oh, look, another great free unit. Hello, 42 HP. This may have a lot of implications for a unit you may want to invest in. I will talk about it tomorrow, though, because I need to really look at the stats and possibly the skills that it has. Let's look forward to that tomorrow. All right, so I'm going to summarize everything I've said so far. If you are maybe considering something here, it's a good thing Veronica is green. Green is usually the orbs that cost, the color that requires the least amount of orbs. Therefore, G-Dual Flying could be an easy pickup, especially if you had like Shershi and whatnot. I do maybe suggest maybe just waiting for a legendary or mythic banner where she might share with somebody like legendary Hector or legendary Lyn, for instance, if you like Lyn, or anyone else really. Like there's so many. Brave Ephraim can make a rerun where you could get more value out of G-Dual Flying, and these units tend to come back in 4 to 5 months from now. So maybe that could be better for you. All the other units are disappointing in one way or another, and I don't really feel like you're going to get a lot of value from a 4-person banner from all these random skills or unit types. So definitely, at least in terms of high-level play, you're not really going to want anything there. The banner does last a whole month, so that's really important to consider when looking at these units. It is generally not worth pulling on day one at all, considering we also have a legendary mythic banner coming up in about 10 days. So if it's Astra, for instance, you're going to need that Astra mythic hero to score really well and rank really well during Astra season, which is one big thing that's missing right now when it comes to AR every second week. So if you haven't spent your orbs, definitely wait until you see the Mythic Banner at least first. I will be covering my Mythic Banner predictions in 2 days from now, 2 to 3 days from now, so look forward to that. But yeah, generally speaking, don't really recommend like going here at all. There's not really much to give you. It's the point, the banner is TLDR, like skip. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching. I will cover the unit comparisons analysis tomorrow. Look forward to that video as well. We'll talk about Loki probably in depth because I'm really excited about that one. I will see you guys tomorrow. Give the video a thumbs up if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And leave a comment below what you think of these units or maybe what you're going to wait for. Give me your thoughts on maybe some builds or maybe what you're going to wait for. Maybe a spring unit you want to see. Do you want to see Est in a year from now? I don't know. Let it be known. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.